So my name's Nick Mosley. Um, I've got a million affiliations now with the industry. I've been around for a long time, built a ton of custom houses, model houses, you name it, everything in between. But take a look at the screen real quick. I've got a kind of a long presentation. I'm not really set up for 30-minute talks. So I'm going to go quickly, but I can always talk more in the little deal breakout session after this. Anyways, very, very affiliated from everything from building to all the different associations, including education, a whole list of things. Well, I can talk about that later though. Real quick, let me tell you a little bit about what California Tiny House offers. I started building my first tiny house in 2013. I formed the company alongside my father in 2014. So we're building tiny homes now for the last 10 years. We do design, consultation, plans. We have model homes. I'm not following this. Oh yeah, I am. We have model tiny homes. We also do park models, 10 and a half, 12 wides. Yes, 10 and a half. Anything over 8.5 requires permits, but it's really a non-issue. It's like for California, and to get me all the way to like Colorado, it's only $45. So it's not very expensive. We typically specialize, and most of our units now are all on the wider side. You get a little bit more bang for your buck, I found that way. We can also do manufactured homes. We're a licensed manufactured home builder, which allows people to park their tiny home in more areas. Even though we're building manufactured homes, they still look and feel and smell and taste and everything just like a normal tiny house. And then we're also able to do modulars. We do not offer models of modulars just yet, but we can still do custom projects. We do offer financing. You can look up at the screen on what kind of terms and stuff we have. We have shells, which are like half builds, partial builds for people that want to finish it themselves, but don't want to do the tricky kind of roadworthiness of what a tiny house requires. And we also offer kits where we can drop ship materials and plans and video step-by-step instructions right to your doorstep. We do have stock models all the time, or what we call like production models. These are models that we build almost day in and day out. We typically have no wait time. So, I mean, I think we probably have like 12 something or other unit stock models in stock at any given moment, ready to go, tomorrow. We also do built to order. If you want a specific model, but you want it customized a little bit to meet your needs, we do that as well. Typically, it takes about 3 months to produce one of those. We also do custom units. We do a lot less than we used to, but we still do custom units. In fact, right now we're building like a medical lab for a zoo here in California, which is pretty fun, interesting, not something we've done before. We also offer educational programs for high schools and junior colleges. We have a dealer, reseller, and referral program. And then we also specialize in fleet units. We produce a lot of tiny homes very quickly. I'd say our capacity is probably somewhere around 100 a year. We don't do 100 a year, but I'd say like 50 a year is not out of the question on any given, year, depending on orders. So let's talk about customs. It seems like it's what most people want, and it does. I mean, what's great about a custom is whether it's you necessarily need a custom, it's something that's tailored completely to you. At least I can't speak for a lot of other builders, although I do know a lot of the other builders in the country, and they do the same thing. They kind of tailor a house around you. It's really I'd say the best way to live in a tiny house. However, the way that by nature, kind of the way that tiny homes are built, they're all kind of got a custom house feel versus like tract homes that you would see, building up by, residential housing developers. They're not so they have features that more of a custom house would necessarily have. So before you start, the main thing that I always say is figure out your budget. I know it's hard to just pull a budget out of thin air, but something that you would be comfortable spending. Once you have that, then you can kind of figure out what your timeline is. Timeline's important because depending on the builder that you choose, you may be waiting in a wait list for an entire year before your build even actually starts. And then you're waiting 6 months after that to get your unit. That's a year and a half in advance. For some people, that's just too far. It's way too long to wait because they need a house in 3 months. Well, there may be a builder out there that can pull that off for a fully true custom. That'd be a very, very tight window. The next step would be finding your builder. I mean, obviously you could always call us, California Tiny House, but there's a lot of great builders in the country. In fact, a lot of times if we get, clients that are calling us from Canada or Florida or, some of these other different states, it dollar to dollar, it actually makes more sense for them to buy from someone local. So we will do referrals like that. I typically like to stay, I don't know, probably Colorado West, although we have shipped further. Once you find your builder, the easiest way to do that is find somebody that, jives with you. Do your research, make sure that you've vetted them so you don't get burnt or something. But find somebody who's got the same kind of design style, the ideas, or that maybe you just like their ideas. The easiest way to do that is call a bunch of us up and talk to us. The next step is designing. Not a lot of builders take designs from a client, although we will, but we take it with a grain of salt, because of the process of building a tiny house and designing a tiny house. There's so much that unless you've had the experience to do it, you just don't think of. And then I say adjust your budget. I know I already said make a budget. After talking to builders, after figuring out what the process is, you might want to adjust it because it's always going to be a little bit more than you thought, or you're going to have to compromise and switch stuff around. And it may not be exactly what you want, but it'll be the price you want. Hopefully that makes sense. So custom design, that's basically where the entire process starts. I mean, you've found that builder and now you're designing. Maybe you've had to pay a design fee or something, but now you're actually getting, pen to paper or, mouse clicks to computer screens, whatever, however they're designing it. But design is the main kind of the biggest element, and it takes a lot of time, but that's kind of the biggest place that you're going to be waiting, at least in my experience, for a fully custom design that's kind of tailored to you. So I'm going to click through these quick because I don't have a lot of time. So these are renderings of houses that we built for clients. These are their custom designs that we did specifically for them. So lots of different shapes and styles and colors and all sorts of stuff. Storage is one of the things. Oh yeah, commercial applications as well. Storage is one of those things that I hear all the time. I need more storage. I need more storage. There is a fine line between adding so much storage that your house now feels small or cluttered and being able to store the essentials. There's very few tiny home dwellers, of which we've built hundreds of houses for, that don't have some type of, small storage shed or, something or they're utilizing underneath their home itself for outdoor storage. There's just certain things like bikes and kayaks and, finding places to fit those in your house is not always feasible. So, and here's a big truth. Not a lot of builders actually use plans. It's surprising to me, but having a set of plans that have gone through, engineering to make sure that they're built and they're built to code, and two, they're meet all those health and safety requirements is less than you think. I can't believe how many builders don't actually have plans for their builds. And I'm not calling anyone specifically out. I have just talked to so many builders over the last, 10 years and found out that a lot of them are, napkin drawings or something. So ask your builder if they're doing plans, if they're doing engineering. Keep in mind though, that there is a cost associated with that. Anytime you're doing true plans, anytime you're doing engineering, it can be anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000 extra for that oversight, having that engineer actually look over everything, give you the proper snow load calculations and wind calculations, maybe the seismic activity or wind activity in a specific zone that you're planning on putting your home. Personally, I think it's crucial information, but if you're not concerned about that, then there's builders that basically, like I said, do like napkin drawings or just drawings in like a SketchUp or something, but won't have a full-blown inspected set of plans, which technically, if you're building RVs, park models, manufactured houses, or modulars, plans that are stamped are required. So they should have them if they're certified. Revisions happen every single time. Once we do a design for a client, that build gets drawn out. We do a base set of plans, and that goes to an engineer. Engineers, personally, I can't stand engineers. I understand what they do for a living, but they're not living in things. They're not designers. They are simply there to meet code, as far as I'm concerned, and they make things much more difficult. So coming up with this really great house that has all these cool features in it, or these spans or cantilevers or things that make it really, really cool, unique, and beautiful, aren't always able to be done. An engineer will scratch that and say, nope, you can't do it that way, or they'll just simply revise your plans. And then it's tough for us as designers to come back to a client and say, okay, we really like this feature, we just have to modify it in XYZ way in order to make it work for you. So there is that little bit of compromise. So keep that in mind. Not everything can be done. Not everything can be done. Not trying to be a buzzkill here, just trying to be realistic. Boom. But now we've done it. We've approved it. Everything is great. We've got the house. You love it. We love it. The engineer's happy with it. Great. Now we can move on. So what's next? So your custom design's done and will meet Health Fire's life safety code. Yay, everyone's happy. But you found out that process that you thought might only take a couple weeks, which it never only takes a couple weeks, actually took a couple months. And you had to wait that whole time. And everyone's frustrated. Boo, that's no fun at all. But that is part of the time that it takes to do a custom correctly. And it might not be 2 months. It might be 3 weeks. It might be 4 weeks. It might be 3 months. It just depends on how many revisions, how many times it has to go back, and how kind of accurate we can get on the first run. My brother and I, now that we've done so many of these, we pretty much know what we can get away with before we submit anything. So pretty good. Now, got your approved set of plans. You've done the weight. Now you're actually making your deposit. Usually, excuse me, usually builders require deposit. It's going to help us upfront purchase materials. The downside to that is there's another wait, because we've already had to wait that long to figure out what we are building. Now we're waiting again to get all the materials that are custom to your project, which right now is not too bad. But, previously during 2020 and 2021, those supply chain issues from COVID, I mean, sometimes it was delaying, projects even 3 months. So hopefully that's just waiting for your parts, and you're not adding that type of weight into a wait list for, to get kind of your spot in line. Once again, more custom houses. Trailer sizes. I mentioned earlier, we offer any trailer size. We've done 7.5 for super narrow driveways, all the way up to 12 wide. And then lengths from 14 feet to, 45 feet or something. So there's lots of different trailer widths. There's lots of different trailer lengths. There's even different trailer styles, depending on whether you want like a loft or maybe you just want a downstairs bedroom. There's better trailers for each one. I'm not going to touch too much on this, but yeah, here's some different trailers. Goosenecks, great for pulling. If you're not pulling your house more than probably twice a year or 3 times a year, I probably wouldn't get a gooseneck, because the really only benefit to it in my mind is that it's easier to pull your house. Otherwise, you're just kind of paying more for a trailer and getting less space. Deck overs just means that the deck of the trailer goes over the wheels. Standard trailer with a fender means that there's a fender well that comes up that you have to build around on the inside. Insulation, there's a million different types of insulation: spray foam, rock wool or mineral wool, denim, cotton. I've seen it all now. Personally, I like rock wool or Roxwool, mineral wool, something that is a fibrous, very dense insulation, essentially made from rocks, minerals. There's a lot of people do still use spray foam, although I thought about using it quite a few years ago, and I steered away from it. I don't know, it just is hard to get here. It's expensive. It off gases a lot. Wasn't something that we wanted to use, and I'm glad we didn't ever go that way. It shrinks over time. There's just a lot of issues with it. If it's done properly, I'm sure it can add a lot of R value to a house. However, there's products like RMax and different ones that are basically panel boards that have spray foam insulation in it, and they have like almost like a aluminum sheet on either side for like reflectiveness, and those can be stacked to get the exact same R value that a spray foam would get. However, you can ensure that it's already pre-dried, it's not going to shrink, it's going to fit your cavity tight, and then you'll get the same R value. I would do that before I spray foamed anything. Roof styles and customs, sky's the limit. Anything you'd see in a regular, you could have the top look like a fairy tale castle with a steeple if you wanted, or a drawbridge. It doesn't make any difference. Customs are fun because they're custom. We get to be creative, you get to be creative, and that makes the entire process a lot more fun. What do every single tiny house, everything that you're living in permanently, they all have the same thing in common. They have to be habitable. So you got some lifestyle stuff. You've got cooking, you've got restrooms, you've got entertainment, a hangout spot, and then a spot to sleep on storage. There you go. It doesn't matter if it's a 14 by 7.5 or a 45 by 12. They all have those elements to them. They're just configured in different ways. Maybe one has a staircase or multiple bedrooms, and one is a studio with a Murphy bed. But all those elements, even on custom projects, unless it's like a custom coffee shop or something that they're not doing a bathroom, any type of real tiny house has all those elements. For loft access, staircases versus ladders. It's always been a big debate. You see a lot less ladders today than ever before, which I think is great because ladders are super dangerous. We will use them still if a customer does want a loft, although it's kind of few and far between. I'd say more often than not, people want staircases to their lofts, or they just don't want lofts at all. I've found that the last couple of years, everyone's been gravitating towards ground level bedrooms, which personally I like a lot more. Works better for me. What am I doing on time? Oof. Different variations of lofts and staircase. We even do what's like a half loft. So instead of having a 6-staircase with a landing, you have 3 steps and you're sitting in your bed. Gives a little bit more room. Not great if you want to put it over the top of a bathroom or something, but it does work in an application where you're doing maybe like a laundry center or something underneath. I mentioned earlier, I don't like putting too much storage into any house. Not that we won't do it, but trying to over storage a house tends to clutter it. But what I won't do is I won't leave any empty space. So no voids if it's the staircase or there's a strange cubby in a bathroom that we realized, oh wow, in the plans it doesn't show this, but building it in real life, now we've got this weird space. We're going to turn it into some type of storage or some type of medicine cabinet or use it for maybe a utility, one of the utilities. Lots of different ways to access lofts, different staircases. These are all custom houses, by the way, guys. I'm just going to click through these. Bathrooms, it's a huge thing. We get a lot of tubs, a lot of, hey, I just want a small shower or I want a tile shower. I want a bathtub. This client wanted a big soaking bathtub and a shower. Why not? Why not do both? If that's what you want. I mean, personally, I haven't fit in a tub since I was probably like 7 years old. So I don't take a lot of baths, but this customer did, and this is their kind of little space. I think there's a YouTube from Tiny House Expeditions where they kind of toured this guy's house. He's got all sorts of like animals and reptiles. We did like this big 10-foot iguana terrarium for him in there. I think you could probably pull it up on YouTube at some point. Bathrooms, they come in all shapes and sizes, from tile to shower inserts, washer dryers, pull-out closets, you name it. Whatever design idea that you have or whatever style, that's a good thing to come into with any designers. What type of style are you looking for? That gives us a lot to go off of, because then we can kind of pick color schemes and we can we've done this enough to where we know 10,000 different layouts, and all we need to do is really talk to you, and then we can get a better idea of what we're building for you. Kitchens, you can have as small as a kitchen as you want or as big of a kitchen as you want, with full-size appliances, upper cabinets, everything that you'd have in a regular house. And we've done them. Usually, more often than not, keeping your upper cabinets off and having more open space up there makes the unit feel a lot larger. But most of what we build, like I said, is 10.5 or 12 wide. So we're already, I mean, the feeling between that and an 8.5 is completely different. Bedrooms, downstairs bedrooms, upstairs loft bedrooms, ones that you crawl underneath, trundle beds, Murphy beds. You need somewhere to sleep. Even if it's a pull-out couch, it's still considered a bedroom, I guess, if you're sleeping in it. Pick your preference. Here's a bunch of different ones. Downstairs, upstairs, open style lofts, closed style lofts, gooseneck ones. There's a Murphy bed and a pull-out couch. Using the space is the most important part of any tiny house build. Finding kind of that harmony before things get too cluttered, but not having it be completely empty, because people have stuff. I mean, we know you have stuff. Every tiny home builder knows that you have stuff. No one's asking you to get rid of all your stuff. We just want to help you build a beautiful house that isn't completely cluttered every time you use it, because then all you're doing is working over the top of everything else. Having to move one thing to get to another thing is the worst. It sounds okay at first, some type of tri-function furniture maybe, until you use it on a daily basis. It's one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of Murphy beds for a primary sleeping area. I really prefer that to be for guests or in a space that you can keep down, most of the time, and then just move up if you need a little bit more room for activities. Yeah, fireplaces, washer dryers, pull outs, all sorts of different stuff. Walk-in closets. I mean, do a lot of tiny homes have walk-in closets? No, but of course it's possible. It's all about using the space efficiently and figuring out what it is that you want, because that's the most important. This is what I was talking about with a half loft. Few steps to get up. It's raised up off the ground, maybe 5 feet instead of 6.5 or 4.5 feet instead of 6.5. This one happened to have a a pull-out desk. It was for a college student, and the other side was a pull-out closet. So this was like their dorm room, I guess. I don't think I have the other side of that, but using the space, like I mentioned, this top picture on the left was this weird cubby. Wasn't really in our plans. It just kind of happened. It was the back side of a medicine cabinet. And so this space was just this void, dead space behind it. And instead of inserting, a 4.5 inch deep medicine cabinet, we made the full 24 inches deep, got rid of the one we were going to do, put a mirror door. And then this is just a spice rack guide that we used to make this big, deep medicine cabinet. It worked out really well, really well. Another walk-in closet. Sorry, I'm talking fast, but I only have like 2 more minutes, I think. Um, use the space. Kitchens, like I said, all different shapes and sizes. Personally, these windows in front of the mirror, or it's mirror in front of the window. Some people love them, some people hate them. I think it's a really cool idea. It doesn't block really a lot of visual through the window, and it's still operable. Everything still works. It just picks up that little bit of extra storage. Plus, it's really cool when you put like glass and fun stuff that shines colors through your house. I can go over. Beautiful. I was already planning on that. Oh, here we go. So this is a very, very early house we built. It was I think it was on HGTV. It has like a fold down table, a couch that converts to a trundle bed, and then the whole thing doubles or triples as like a sofa for TV or a dinette table with extra chairs that pull up on the other side, or a bed. It's great unless someone's sitting there eating and you also want to go to sleep. Then you got to kick them out. More customs, bringing custom design elements onto location as well. While we didn't build the deck for this customer, we still designed the deck for them. And they modified it a little bit to kind of fit their needs. But this house was great. Had a outdoor shower. It's somewhere in wine country here in California. Now they did a gooseneck. They didn't plan on moving it ever, but that was by design. They wanted the space underneath the gooseneck to store, I want to say, water tanks. So they're using it to store like 55-gallon drums that were a little bit taller, too tall to fit under their house. They didn't want them to be seen. They fit in that space. So I guess you could build a gooseneck for other reasons. And then more customs. Lots of different stuff. We've done hunting cabins and vacation homes, custom furniture, Spanish style homes. Usually those are in like New Mexico, San Diego, stuff like that. Commercial projects. This is for a popsicle company. This has a modular deck. Now they travel around with this every year, all the time up and down the California coast. And this deck comes apart into pieces and it fits in the bed of their truck. And then they drive and set it up each time. There's that IHOP that we built. Okay, so here's how to reach me, or us, I should say. Custom, well, I'll just leave this up while I talk, and you can screenshot it or something. But anywho, so yeah, we've done hundreds and hundreds of custom homes. I want to say somewhere north of 400. We've done probably half that in model homes just the last 3 or 4 years. We've been doing this a very long time. I've probably forgotten most of the stuff that some of these new builders are learning. But that's how you learn. You got to start somewhere, and we learn from our mistakes. We learned what works products wise and what doesn't work. We have prices probably are a question if you don't have access to the internet right now. We have houses anywhere from 50,000 to 180,000, and then probably up from that if you want something crazy that's custom. We also have shells and kits that I think start at 20,000 and up from there. So we could partially build we could partially build a unit for you. Basically, any of our models have 3 different shell options, or you can buy the actual turnkey unit. Some come with appliances, some don't. There's a ton of different upgrades, so you can kind of make them your own. And then as far as our fully customs go, the sky's the limit. We can do most things, as long as it meets health and safety code. And I mean, I prefer it to be something fun. Um, we can do it. So custom is the most expensive way to go, though. Just keep that in mind. It's the coolest thing, and it's probably the most fun for tiny house builders out there. I don't know about other builders, but me personally, it's the least amount of money we make is on customs, but it's the most fun that we have. That's where our passion for this really started. And it's more fun than the money that we get from it. So we get to get really invested in our client. We get to design alongside them and come up with something truly unique. And I think that's the most fun part of our job. But we also build models because we just can't physically build that many customs a year. The process is far too long. I've got a fairly big crew, but it just takes way too long to build more than probably, I don't know, I think the most customs we ever did in 1 year was like 13, and that was brutal. I was getting change orders mid-build, and I couldn't even remember what house they were going in. So I'm glad that we have multiple offerings now. It's made things a lot easier for us. I'm going to quickly try and read some questions. So let me do that. I don't know where this starts here. Okie dokie. Let me see. Choose higher end. Oh, that's Joe. Hey, Joe. Yeah, true. Windows are choose high-end windows. You'll pay probably 3 times the price, but that's where most of your heat and cooling is going to go. It's not going to go through the walls. You do want some insulation. Oh, by the way, my screen is just right here. So, hey, I can close this other one, I guess. Um, most of your heating and cooling is going to go through your windows, not through your walls. I think there's a song in there somewhere. How do we find buyers in this crazy and unaffordable market? Well, unaffordable is kind of a relative term. I mean, I don't know what everyone's, financial situations are kind of looking like, but we do, like I mentioned, we do have pretty great financing options, like up to 25 years with 10% down, and we have houses as low as like $50,000. Probably, let's say 60 after tax. You're looking at $6,000 down probably, and then I don't know, 700 or 800 bucks a month or less. It's basically 50,000 is basically the price of a lot of cars right now. So stretch that 6-year car payment that you normally make over the course of 25 years. And then interest rates follow what the national housing ones are. I think they're like what, 7.5, 8 right now, something like that. I don't know. You guys could probably know better than me, but they usually track with that along pretty well. Da, 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 da. Would you be open to partnering? Yes. So, Prudent Capital, I have a ton of different partnership programs, whether it's vendors, dealers, resellers, or people for just referrals. Now, my referral crowd, I keep pretty tight. So I don't allow a ton of those because they tend to overlap each other a lot. The tiny house world is It's growing very fast, but it's not as big as people think. It's a pretty tight-knit community still. So, um, what other ones we have? It's full-time living in a tiny home, a challenge in California relative to zoning codes. No, so this is for Laura or Lara. Uh, California is becoming easier and easier to live in a tiny home. Now, you're specifically talking about a tiny home on wheels or a movable tiny house. There's dozens of counties and cities, and myself and a friend of mine, Dan, have been working on this since we got the first bill passed in Fresno, California in 2016 that allowed tiny homes on chassis or on wheels to be permanent ADUs in backyards. Now, as far as standalone tiny homes on wheels, there's very few spots that allow that right now. One's like Placer County, another one is Santa Cruz County, and then we've even been able to permit those in Humboldt County. It's a start, and we're using that county code now for a lot of other counties around the state. I focus mostly on legislation in California. However, I've worked on just about every legislation bill from any state outside of the new Colorado one. Um, in fact, I'm even a voting member on this new committee that's actually creating the building codes and building standards for movable tiny houses. That's through the International Code Council. Probably won't see it for probably 2 or 3 years, but we hope that municipalities can then adopt that, which basically says that now these things can be single family residential houses. So that'd be really cool. Yeah, thanks for answering my stuff, Joe. Appreciate it. What else do we have? Oh, it's not really a challenge, Laura. It's finding out what you can do, where you can do it. And then if you can't do a tiny house on wheels, which is basically an RV built like a house, you could always do a manufactured, which is the new term for a mobile home. Because the mobile home word just sounds icky. Now, it doesn't have to look like a mobile home. It could just be exactly like a regular, like we have a model called the Vesta. If you look at it on our website, it is a park model tiny home on wheels. It's also a manufactured house. It's the exact same house. Nothing changes in it. It's built identical both ways. So it's overbuilt essentially on both of the inspection sides of things, the building code, but we do that by design so that it meets every single building code. Yeah, Tiny Home Industry Association is a great resource for where you can legally park stuff currently. But just remember, things are changing very, very rapidly. So with builders like myself and movable roots and a handful of others, a lot of us are offering more than just tiny home RVs. We're offering manufactured and even modular, which is just a tiny home that comes on site, gets craned onto a foundation, and is permanent. I'm pretty sure Mike offers those, or I know Mike from Movable Roots does, and then we're offering those as well this year and for the foreseeable future. So, any other questions before I go? Because we've got like 20 minutes before those little breakout things happen. Seen none.
There's I don't know if you saw the one in the Q&A or if you just didn't.
I have no idea.
There's a little Q&A button down there, but you somewhat talked about the building codes, but I think yeah, C is a great option for it. But if you click that little Q&A button down there, it'll pop up like another like little chat box almost. But
Oh,
there's a question in there, but
yeah, I think I did.
okay.
I think there's
Yeah,
one there that I saw.
I know you answered something along those lines, but cool,
Do you
cool.
work in Washington State? Not very often. Washington is one of the most difficult states to work with. Sorry, Zach, it was like just popped up. Washington uses an inspection service called L&I. While there's nothing wrong with anything that's built or comes out of Washington, they very rarely recognize anything that's not built in Washington that comes in. Um, So unless it might have to be like a manufactured house. And then I might be able to get L&I to approve it, even though I'm in California for the state of Washington. But we're trying right now to work with third party agencies to do on-site inspections in other states so that we can send stuff into Washington more easily. But it just all that kind of bureaucracy just takes time. Um, I bought a house with an 8 by 20 shed in the back. Is it realistic to turn that into a tiny home in California? I understand. Um, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough question. I'd have to see the way that the shed is built. The way that a tiny home built, though, a tiny home is built is not even the way that a traditional home is built. There's so many extra steps that go into it. A lot of price per square foot arguments have happened because of this, because you have, on one hand, just a standard home. There's no weight balance, requirement. There's no wind force that it has to really hit except for the area that it's in. But as a tiny home builder, I don't know if the house that I built is going to go to, San Diego or Big Bear, where one, the temperature is about the most moderate as anywhere, probably on the planet. And the other, it can be crazy hot, over 100, and then freezing cold, all in one year. You never know exactly where someone's going to take one of these things. You just have to kind of do your best. Um, but you still have to build it to where it can be transported 65 mile an hour down the road with, a 35 mile an hour crosswind, which is essentially a 95 mile an hour hurricane, every time it gets pulled anywhere. So there's a lot of extra steps that most people don't think about. That's what leads to shifting and cracking and settling over time, because people, maybe it was they DIY'd it, or they just simply didn't know. They came from home building and then they started building tiny homes and they built them exactly the same. Though everyone figures it out eventually, but that's definitely one of the big things that happen. That and weight balance. I see a lot of people screw that up. Washington State has a shortage of homes. Every state has a shortage of homes. But yeah, I mean that's all the tiny house builders in the world. We could all build 1,000 homes a year. We'd still never catch up. So we're doing the best we can, though. Is solar beneficial for a tiny house? Truth be told, Diane, no. Um, unless you are given no other options, like you really don't have any other options. You have to be on solar because you cannot get power. Then I personally would not recommend it. Well, I like the sustainability of solar. You're spending, unless it's just as a if it's just as a backup, you're not doing it like an off-grid setup when you have power that's 30 feet away. You'd spend 25 to 35,000 minimum on that DIY solar package, where I don't care if you're in that house for 60 years, you'll never pay that back from paying, PG&E or one of those other power companies. I've had customers as low as $50 a month on full electric tiny homes, all the way up to like $210 a month was like the most one I ever saw. And that was like a family of four. So I don't recommend solar unless you have to. All right, I'm done.